My name is Wayne Turner. I've bought, flipped, built, sold thousands of houses. I'm going to walk you through a house to give you a little bit of an option besides just buying land. I know people want to purchase land and build their own houses. However, you have to consider there's bank-owned homes, there's homes for sale, just traditional homes out there where you can purchase those properties without building a house. And you can actually purchase houses like the one I'm going to walk you through for literally just $1,000 out of pocket. Now, what I mean by $1,000 out of pocket is $1,000 down. That's right. These are houses and they're all around the country. I have thousands of agents that work with people, consumers, buyers, just like yourself. You may be watching this video and you're thinking, Wayne, I want to buy a piece of land so I can build me a house. And I get that. 30 plus years ago, I wanted to do the same thing, but I didn't. I built a little house in a neighborhood because that's what got me started. That's what got me going, and that worked out great for me. I lived in the house 5 years. I sold it, made $25,000. So keep your options open. That's why I want to walk you through this house, because this is a way to buy a house that only costs you $1,000. Now, if you want to live in the suburban areas or a rural area or out in the country, this is a rural area that I'm in. It's on 18.6 acres. It's a house. They're asking $234,900 for this home. It's all brick, nice little house. You can purchase houses just like this one. And you only need $1,000 through the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture. They call these home loans rural development loans because you're going to be on the outskirts of town. Now, you don't have to be way on the outskirts. Typically, you just need to be 35 to 45 minutes outside of a major city limit. Now, I've helped thousands of families purchase houses through this type of program. I've actually done other videos on it. If you haven't seen those, you can go to WayneTurnerTV.com. You can also subscribe there to the channel. If you're not watching this on YouTube, hit the little subscribe button. We've had over 1 million people watch that video. And as a result, we've had a lot of people reach out and say, Wayne, I want to purchase a house that way. Give me more information. And I tell people, you simply go to contactwayne.com. When you go to contactwayne.com, you can tell me what you're looking for, and we can connect you with an agent in your hometown to get you a home just like this one. Now, one of the most important things that you have to have when you purchase a house like this are closing costs. You have to have closing costs. I just caught myself. I said I a minute ago. I meant to say we. Collectively, between staff, team, agents all around the country, we've sold thousands of houses through this USDA Rural Development Loan. But most importantly, you got to have the seller pay your closing costs. And they do, and they will pay your closing costs 99.9% of the time. Now, the closing cost is what starts your payments, escrows, insurance, all of that, right? And it typically will run you about 3.5%. And most sellers are happy to pay it. But you have to ask them and you have to know how much. That's why I emphasize it's around 3.5%. Some people, lenders, agents, they think it's up there 6, 7%. It's not the case. It's only 3.5%. Because if you ask for too much money, what's the seller going to say? No, because when they're paying your closing cost, it's being deducted from their net proceeds. So if they sell a house for $200,000 and they pay $10,000 of your closing cost, they're not writing you a check. The closing attorney just subtracts it from the sales price and they give it to you as a credit. So it's a debit from them and a credit to you, the buyer. But you got to make sure that you're not asking for an astronomical amount of money, because when you do that, the seller's just going to flat out say no. And look, you don't want them to say no, you want them to say yes. That's why you have to know the questions to ask and put in the contract. And you know, do this, grab a pen and a piece of paper. You're gonna wanna write this stuff down. This house actually has a pond too, check that out. So as I mentioned, 18.6 acres pond. It's an all brick house. Let's take a look inside. Now I have to say this house it's pretty rough, and I'll show you a little bit of the details as I walk around when I say rough. So sometimes the house is in such bad condition, you can't get a USDA loan. You can't get that RD loan. You have to get a conventional loan. Now you can still get the seller to pay your closing cost. And it's not all houses, but this home in particular that I have to be walking through, it's a foreclosure. It's a bank-owned house. And oftentimes when they sit empty, they try to lock them up, they try to maintain them, but sometimes they get vandalized. This one's had a few things damaged to it. And not just damage to it, I'll show you what I mean. People come in and take light fixtures. And so when you have light fixtures and appliances and things like that missing on a house, you cannot get an FHA, you can't get a VA, and you can't get a USDA RD loan. You have to go conventional in that situation. But look, not all these houses are in this rough condition. Some of them are in pretty good condition. Sometimes the banks actually go in and make improvements. They'll put new flooring, new paint, fix wood and whatever to make the house look good. I just realized, I don't know why I'm whispering. I don't know why I'm whispering. I just don't want the echo, but you can hear me okay, right? But the banks will actually go through and make improvements on the property. And some banks are like, nope, it's as is where it is. Now, I think it's kind of crazy that banks do that personally, because when they do that, they're limiting the buyers that can actually purchase the house. Like this house in particular, you could come in and make some improvements to this property with literally just a few $1,000s. Nah, probably take more than that. But point being, it would open it up, and they could increase the price actually, because if they made those improvements to the property, it'd be more people that could purchase a property through USDA rural development loans like I was talking about. They could sell it and maybe even sell it for more money. So let me show you what caught my eye. I'm sure you caught that. It's like, what's he looking at? And it was this stove right here. That duct tape caught my eye, and I thought, boy, that's a little mud flap right there. That's gonna catch some wind. But this stove, it's shot, but it is a double oven, and it's already pre-wired for that. So you can easily have another double oven put there, or you could do an oven microwave combo. Banks won't do that type of stuff. And if this doesn't work, you can't get an FHA loan or USDA loan on this house in particular, or any house for that matter. That's just some of the things that you have to look out for when you start to look for a house once you're approved with the USDA rural development loan. Now, it's pretty simple to get approved, but there is a difference between being approved and being qualified. Approved is when they verify your income, verify your job, make sure you filed your taxes, you paid, have tax returns, you have a 620 or higher credit score. So I tell people, most importantly, if you have years on the job, 2 years, tax returns, you're good to go. If you're concerned about your credit even, we have lenders that can pull your credit and look at everything on your credit report, and they can give you some tips and pointers and tricks and show you exactly what to do to get that score bumped up to 40, 60, 80 points. Because once you hit that 620 mark, you can purchase a house like this one. They do what they call a rapid rescore, and there's no cost and no obligation for a good lender to do that for you. Now, the qualification's a little bit different. And listen, the reason why the lenders don't charge you anything to do that is they're hoping that they'll do a good job for you. You'll be pleased with them. They won't charge you anything to get you approved, and then you'll use them to purchase your house. And that's when they get paid. That's how they're compensated. When you purchase a home, you get a loan from them. Now, the qualification is a bit different. Qualifying is when you physically just talk with a lender on the phone. You tell that lender what your job and income and debts and credit score and all that. So you're just kind of talking with somebody, and they'll tell you, based on your information that you're giving me, you should qualify for X number of dollars in a home. Now, I go into a lot of houses, and as crazy it may sound, and you may have experienced this before. Have you ever walked into a house or walked into a room in a house and it just feels weird? You get like, it's thick, the air's thick, it just doesn't feel, it just, something about it. This house in particular, as I walk through, it feels very loved. It feels like at one time somebody really loved this house and took care of it. I know that sounds crazy. It sounds like something my mom would say, love you, Mom. But here's the deal. It just feels loved. It feels like someone, at one time really put the heart and soul into this house. It's all brick. I'm standing in the middle of the main bedroom. I mean, this thing's huge. Double closets. The windows are all, for the most part, in pretty good shape. And in the bathroom here, they did, like I always say, do. I always tell people, do double vanities. So they did double vanities, got some cabinet doors missing. They're actually right there. Look at that big corner tub. And then over here is a massive shower. Check this out, it's all tile. Now, don't get me wrong, it needs to be cleaned. Could use a pressure washer. But all in all, it's got good bones to it, as I say. Now, I want to go back in the bathroom because I just seen something. I seen this little tag, and when you see these little tags, it says attention. And that tag right there says that this property's been winterized. Now, what they'll do when they winterize pipes is they blow out the lines. They take literally and blow out air through those lines, and they put antifreeze in all the drains. That keeps the plumbing fixtures and the plumbing lines from freezing. Now, you have to be careful because when you buy a house like this, you'll want to get it inspected because you don't know how long this home has actually sat vacant. If a home has sat vacant for 2 or 3 or 4 years, especially in a colder climate, you don't know when the bank has taken the property back. You don't know how long it has sat vacant. And if it sat vacant, because when you turn the water on, you turn it off, right? There's still water that's kept in those lines, and it can freeze. And if it freezes, those pipes bust. And when those pipes bust, That's big money. Now, I said the windows in this house are in pretty good shape. There's a few of them that are busted, and when it has busted windows, if the seller or the lender will not fix the windows, once again, you can't get VA, FHA, USDA loans. This property in particular, now this is way out in the country. We're a ways from city limits, but yeah, people have been taking shots at the windows because I guess as they ride down the road, it's an empty house. I don't know. But people just vandalize stuff. I don't get it. So look, even though this house is way out in the country and you've got bullet holes in the windows, banks should know about that stuff and they should come and fix them. But unfortunately, banks get to the point where they're like, nope, I'm not fixing anything. It's as is where it is. You can have it inspected, but we're not fixing anything. And that's what happens when you purchase a house that's in rough condition, because you have to have the money to fix up the house after you purchase it. But if it's in too bad a condition, the appraiser that walks through the house to tell you, is it worth it? They also walk through and look at parts and components to make sure they're working. And if they're not working to their intended function, they won't give you a mortgage. Now, something I just noticed, and you can probably see that there, looks like a little bit of a leak. So it had a leak. I always tell people, get up in the attic. It had a little bit of a leak. Here's what happens on houses when they're vacant and empty. When they have leaks like that, there's no utility zone and it gets real hot. And when it gets real hot, you get mold and mildew. And you have to have this stuff abated. It has to be cut out and professionally removed and professionally abated. You can't just do that yourself with putting a little bit of bleach on it. So you gotta be aware of what to look for. Now, I also said you'll wanna get up in the attic. And look, you're not just looking for the obvious of water leaks or anything like that when you come up in an attic. Of course, always walk on the plywood, but you're looking for water leaks, you're looking for any signs of a fire. You want to look around the fireplace flues. You want to make sure the ductwork hadn't been chewed on by any critters. You also want to pull back the insulation. Now, this is something that people miss a lot. You pull back the insulation. By pulling back the insulation in a house, you can see, somebody fell through there, see? You can see if that has contaminated sheetrock. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be contaminated or it is contaminated, but there was an issue many, many years ago where sheetrock from China was heavily contaminated and people had to physically turn their houses over to the bank. Now, the attic in this house is in really good condition. You can tell it's framed really well and it's not all that old. You can look around and tell there's no sign of any fire. It doesn't look like there's any physical leaks, but listen, you're going to walk around a whole lot. You're going to want to spend quite a bit of time up here, and so will the home inspector. One thing I noticed, this house is pretty cool. It has two water heaters. There's a water heater here, and there's another water heater over there. Yeah, they put water heaters in attics. I'm not a fan of it, but what are you going to do? Now look, do me and yourself a favor. When you walk down your attic steps, don't walk like it's a flight of steps. You walk down backwards and you hang on to the sides. I don't know if anybody's taught you that, but just tell everybody that Uncle Wayne taught you that. Don't walk down facing out. Walk down facing the steps. Can't tell you how many times people have fallen coming out of those attics. So let's take a look outside. There's something else I want to share with you. I noticed I was walking around. So houses in a lot of these areas, and I always tell people, listen, when you're going to buy a piece of land, you want to do your survey, you want to get a survey, you want to walk the property. Same way with this. Even though there's a house sitting on this property, you want to walk it, you want to walk every square inch of it, especially if it's a bank-owned house. Now, you can pull surveys at your city, parish, county tax records. They can pull a survey, but if it's an old survey, you don't know if somebody's encroaching upon the property. So you'll want to walk every square inch of the property to make sure that no one is trespassing, if you will. The last thing you want to do is purchase a piece of property and have to try to get someone that's been trespassing with a storage building or shed or fence or whatever it may be. That's a headache. Now, this is a beautiful house and a beautiful piece of property, and I tell people you got to get a well, got to get a septic, got to do all that to make sure if you're going to buy a piece of land, build a property. If you buy a house like this and it already has a septic system, already has a well, you got to make sure that it's working to its intended function. Now, the county will typically come out and they will look at that for you, but when you're buying a foreclosure, you got to know that they're not going to turn on the utilities of the house. When you buy it, it's pre-existing, that's fine, they'll turn them on, and the seller is responsible for doing that. But when it comes to a foreclosure, it's as is where it is. You can see this one right here is in pretty rough shape. So that's the aerator and the septic system right there. And you can tell that people have just been kicking it and beat it up, and it's just in, like, you're gonna need a new one of those. They'll run brand new about $1,000 to $1,200 for a new aerator. So those are the types of things that you can't get an USDA loan on this type of property, but you can get USDA loans on other properties as long as all that stuff's working. That's why it's so important to take notes and make sure you look for those types of things, because you don't want to waste a whole lot of valuable time, your time, making an offer on a property when you could have walked around and saved yourself a whole lot of time and headache. Because if it's a bank-owned house and it has all these issues with it, you just got to say next. And man, the stuff they took in this property is kind of crazy. Like, literally, that's what's left over of the central heat and air unit. Like, what are you gonna do? Well, it just hit me. I think what somebody may have done is those bullet holes and those windows I showed you earlier, and things are missing. Maybe those bullet holes come from the inside, not the outside. I don't know. But you have to look at the overall cost of fixing, building, repairing, and doing all of this. If you were to take and purchase 18 acres of land and then put a house on it at today's dollars and today's construction materials, and not just land, check this out. This house actually has a detached garage. So it's got a roll-up door. We'll take a look. There's no light, so it'll be a little dark for a second. But this is a huge metal building. There's electricity all through it. It's steel beamed. It's in great shape. It's got a roll-up door. I mean, something like this, to actually have this installed and built, $15,000 to $20,000 on your own lot. So the moral of the story is, you work hard, you deserve a house. Get your credit up to 620 and get that process rolling. If you need help getting your credit score cranked up to 620, you can watch this video here. It'll show you some tips and pointers on how you can increase your credit score in as little as 60 days.